From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. A production of iHeartRadio.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My name is Matt.
My name is Noel.
They call me Ben. We're joined, as always, with our super producer, Dylan, the Tennessee pal, Fagan. Most importantly, you are you. You are here. That makes this the stuff they don't want you to know. And quick question, fellow conspiracy realist. What's your sign?
Ooh, are you flirting with me?
Oh, I'm always negotiating. We're doing it. We're doing it tonight, folks. Look at us. A pride of Leos, as Western astrology says, doing, believe it or not, an astrology episode. Now, for a lot of us in the crowd tonight, when you hear the word astrology, it instantly conjures up images of Western astrology. So maybe we make some space. Do you guys want to talk about your own experiences with astrology? Do you have any meaningful ones?
Well, being that we're all Leos, Ben, didn't you pull a horoscope for the three of us?
Yes, we are recording on February 28th. 2025 as the current calendar reckons, and our horoscope for us now, not counting Tennessee pal Dylan, aka the Rutabaga King, Lord of the Rutabagas, from a listener mail segment earlier. Dylan is a
Virgo.
If you are Leo, here's what astrology.com says about you. Do you want to do it, Matt?
Don't feel discouraged if your efforts go unnoticed for now, dearest Leo, as the Pisces moon aspects Mars and Saturn. Trust that movement from behind the scenes will get you where you want to be, continuing your work from the shadows.
No comment.
A burst of energy could propel you into the spotlight when Luna aligns with Uranus. I'm sorry.
No, keep going.
Mid-afternoon. So be prepared to dazzle and or razzle with your, I added that part, with your wisdom and practical work ethic.
Themes around commitment come into view when Mercury and the nodes of fate activate tonight.
Okay.
Use this energy to reflect upon or discuss your hopes and dreams before heading to bed.
Guys, what are the nodes of fate and how do they activate? And do they only activate at night, or is this a, all day, all night kind of thing?
It's kind of like a nipple situation metaphysically.
Okay.
It can activate at any time.
That sounds good.
With the proper stimulation.
Okay. So,
Guys, this hits home so hard, all of this stuff. Oh, my gosh.
You are a bit of a shadowy figure, Matt.
I'm doing all that work from behind in the shadows.
A lot of thrusting movements.
Trust that movements.
I don't take notes. So,
but do you take nodes of fate?
Right. So you could tell we're all excited to be back together. You may have read your own horoscope recently. This is publishing in March, in early March. It's February as we record this, the very last day of February. And we have been talking on and offline, hanging out or on air about the many beliefs of astrology. There are tons of belief systems oriented toward figuring out the passage of humanity through interpretations of the stars, finding meaning, context, destiny. Some people dismiss this entirely. Fellow skeptics in the crowd, we totally get it. We're talking with our pal, our complaint department guy, Jonathan Strickland, who is available whenever you have a problem with an episode. Jonathan Strickland at iHeartRadio.com. Please don't hesitate to contact him multiple times.
He loves it. He thrives on it, honestly.
He's all about it. He is perhaps more skeptical than some others.
What was the question you put to him, Ben? It was like, how much credence do you put into this? And I believe he responded with none whatsoever.
Yes. So right to him. And other people, as we know, in your personal life as well, fellow listeners, you may be a person who encounters astrology through one system or another as the primary guiding force in your day-to-day life. Or you may, like Jonathan or Matt or Noel or Dylan or myself, you may have a close friend who very much follows the guidance of the stars as they see it. But our question tonight is, how much credence do people put in these systems? How far does belief in and practice of astrology go in the modern day?
If you're Jonathan Strickland, none whatsoever credence. But, results may vary, as you will find out today. And the government also has something to say about these things.
That's right. Tonight, we are exploring a phenomena that may surprise a lot of our fellow conspiracy realists: the times that modern governments looked to astrology for some serious decisions.
Take a quick word from our sponsor and jump right into it.
Here are the facts. All right, let's put on our How Stuff Works hats and just talk about astrology a bit. What is it? What's going on here?
It's looking at the stars and the planets and saying there is significance there in one way or another, especially the time that you were born, like time of day you were born, and the time of year you were born, specifically the month and the day. And it is observing things that happen in the sky and correlating them to what occurs on Earth.
Incorporating latitude and longitude as human civilization went on. And then perhaps the primary defining factor of divination and astrology in particular is it's classic human. It's looking at the passage of the universe, the beautiful universe, and saying, how can I make this about me?
So human.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I do. I think it comes from that deep thing that consciousness needs, and that is to be able to somehow see a little bit further than your eyes can.
Find meaning in it all. Find some sort of connection to something larger than ourselves and outside of ourselves.
Mm-hmm. To recognize patterns and to leverage those patterns towards some sort of deeper understanding or situational advantage. Astrology is a subgenre of divination. There's so many types of divination. In the notes here, we have a couple that we wanted to shout out. Guys, have you heard of bibliomancy?
It's some kind of sorcery involving a glossary, perhaps? I don't know. Tell me.
Using a random book, turning to a passage. This one is about zoo animals and giant pandas that I'm holding up here. Okay. And then turning to random passages for divination. There's one Noel will love, augury, Augury, which is predicting the future by observing birds. And I will defend this one because I do think there's some solid science.
Birds are tuned in pretty hardcore to all kinds of things that we cannot perceive.
Wait, does somebody can we do a quick bibliomancy? Let's ask a question and then bibliomance.
Sure. Does everybody have a book?
No.
No, well, we just need one, right?
Just do it, Ben.
Use the zoo one.
You want to use the zoo one?
Yes.
Or do you want to use a North Korea one? I got too many books.
Dealer's choice.
Too many books.
All right. Too many books. All right. So how about this, guys? I have a stack right next to me. I'll run my right pointer finger up and down the stack. You guys say when, starting now.
When?
All right. Okay. So we are... Oh, this is a pretty good one. The Norton Anthology of Modern Poetry. All right. Okay. So let's determine our intention and ask our question. You guys choose. Question.
Yeah, Matt, please, okay. you do this one.
The question is...
This is a success of me playing with pages.
I want to ask something about Starlink because there's interesting stuff going on with that because it's connected, to the stars as well in some way. Will we all be using Starlink as our primary internet at some point in the future?
Will we all be using Starlink as our primary internet at some point in the future? Yes. Okay, Noel, let's make it collaborative. I'm susurrusing the pages.
Okay.
Say when.
Oh, when.
Okay, I'm running my finger up and down.
Don't look at it, just...
Say when.
When?
Here we go.
And politics has no landscape. The Silesian scene crops out in prospects felt as deeply as any of these, with as much or as little reason. This is from Barnsley and District by Donald Davey, page 1055.
Wait, read that first.
That sounds like
that first sentence?
Yeah, please give it to us. Without politics, that's fantastic.
And politics has no landscape. The Silesian scene crops out in prospects felt as deeply as any of these, with as much or as little reason.
Now, sounds like it's going to happen by necessity.
It does. I think you're right. So, but we can see here just with that one example, right? We did that on the fly for real, and if the way that was read, there was a lot of words there, right? There was a lot of meaning that you could pull out of those words. But the first thing appears to apply in some abstract way to the question that was asked.
To the pattern we had primed ourselves to interpret.
Can I just say that on a very long flight that I just got back from, on the way to that destination, Starlink was the onboard internet being used, and I had never experienced it before, and it was blazing fast. I could make video calls from 40,000 feet, and on the way back, it was something else. It wasn't Starlink for whatever reason. I don't have to do it has to do with the route or what, and it was terrible, but I was very impressed with Starlink. I don't want to give Elon Musk a lot of props, but I was pretty impressed with that technology.
And there are other forms of divination too, right? There's interpreting patterns in tea leaves. That's tasseography. I just learned the word for that.
That was a big one in the White House for a minute. Maybe we'll get into that. With I know one first lady at least had her tea leaves read quite often.
Not a euphemism. And Noel, I don't want to sound dismissive of what you're saying with Starlink, because we were on the same flight.
Correct.
Witnessed the same thing. So yeah, I think it's very fair of you to give credit where it's due. Also, while we're doing that, Elon Musk did not create Starlink.
Of course not. Like he didn't create just about anything that
PayPal,
he puts his name on. But again,
what about DirecTV?
I don't know about.
Sorry.
Well, no, I don't even know. Is that even in play? Does he have any?
I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Wasn't that a service that was like, oh my gosh, I can get my television from the sky?
Satellite stuff, for sure. There was a moment for satellite TV. Maybe it still applies in some regions, but seems to have lost its luster around here.
Why everybody should re-listen to that Counting Crows album about satellites.
What was it called? Something to satellites?
Yeah.
No. What's the word? What are we doing to the satellites? What were the Counting Crows doing to the satellites?
Recovering?
Recovering. Isn't it recovering the satellites?
Maybe that's it. So you're probably correct. This is interesting. Another form of divination, phrenology. Phrenology, a little bit problematic.
That's real problematic.
Is that the head?
Yeah, head bump. It's the head.
Yeah.
And folks used to use it to very significantly other, races that were not what was considered the master race.
To justify chattel
yes,
slavery.
100%.
Yeah, that was their big one.
And like man versus woman type stuff as well, right? I remember all that.
Or to also oppress Melungeons, because we've all got that weird bump in the back of our heads.
And other indigenous people, for sure. I mean, pretty much
way more other people. That should be the focus here. We also know that divination, when you think of the concept, it sounds like something from a dusty scroll or a history book. But again, shout out to our complaint department and shout out to our skeptics in the crowd. Let's remember, U.S. conspiracy realists, before we get to on too high of a horse
or a hedgehog, not a hedgehog,
right?
A groundhog.
Groundhog. The United States has an annual day dedicated to predicting the weather based on the actions of a specific groundhog.
Is this still called Puxatawny, Phil? Or is that just in the movie? That's a thing?
No, it's Phil. Okay. But it's Phil the way that any airplane the U.S. president is on is automatically Air Force One.
Mm-hmm. Or Sheikh Mohammed. It's like something you get into, right?
Or UGA, the UGA, University of Georgia Bulldog, that they just keep naming it. And I think adding a number, but it's always UGA.
Or like the Pope hasn't been the same Pope the whole time.
That's true.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. The news. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see how that ages. And also,
We don't want people to die. So best of luck.
As divination methods go, astrology is certainly the most mainstream that has really caught on and become a huge part of pop culture. I mean, you can go to like Spencer at the mall and, right next to the the naughty toys and edible underwear, and horror movie posters, you can find tapestries of astrological symbols and, certain kinds of maps that are used for this very purpose.
Well, for years and years and years, the main publications, like newspapers in this country, had horoscopes. Like every time they put out something, there was a horoscope in there.
I know. Great.
Drumsticks.
Let's keep it.
How did you know?
Also,
you couldn't see it. You just know the sound.
Hear it.
You just
you
knew.
You know the sounds.
That's a drummer for you, right there, buddy.
When you know, you know. Also, Matt, Noel, I think you guys are already aware, but one interesting gig I had for a while was writing horoscopes for a local
I don't think I knew that.
paper. Yeah, and I was hired because I wanted to write features about things that I thought more people should learn. The editor said no. They asked me if I believed in horoscopes. I said no, and they said, perfect,
all the better.
You're hired.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you consult with any kind of literature when you would make your horoscopes? Or
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
like what?
Absolutely. I talked with some folks who are considered experts in Western astrology and also pulled some contacts for non-Western astrology. And then, you have to Matt's point, you have to make it approachable, generally positive. We'll talk about this, but I love the idea of, or I think it's important for us to acknowledge the reason astrology remains the most popular form of divination in the modern West is because it is the continuation of a trend. The technology you need to encounter or navigate or interrogate astrology is very simple. You need eyes to see, and you need to leverage the concept of a story.
It's accessible, though, too, because wherever you are in the world,
Right.
you got eyes on the skies. It might look a little different depending on what kind of constellations are visible and depending on your level of light pollution or lack thereof. But that is a very human commonality, and it doesn't really require much improvisation. In terms of like finding another thing like bones or tea leaves or what have you. It's right there.
Right. You need very little equipment. You need the original technology of the humans, which is story. And then you just need to observe a thing that is constant to prince and pauper alike, the constellations. It also, shout out to pop culture, there's a very beautiful song about looking at the same star from worlds away that Fievel sings.
Somewhere out there.
Yeah,
the
an
pale
American Tail.
moonlight. Yeah. Really. What a bummer of a film. All those Bluth Company animations were really, really sad, but awesome. I really love The Secret of Nim personally, but grew up with that song and it gets stuck in my head out of the clear blue sky, just every now and again.
It's a beautiful song.
But that whole family has problems, I've heard.
Yes. Yeah. Spoilers.
The Bluth family?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that Arrested Development?
Their development was a bit arrested. Yeah.
Sorry.
But
please.
you can watch the chaos and decay of that family in an excellent documentary series.
Yep. From Ron Howard.
Yes.
No, actually, he was just the narrator. I forget the guy's name. What's it? Hurwitz? Mitch Hurwitz. Sorry. Carry on.
That's right. Credit where it's due. Yeah, great point, Noel. So for most people in the secular West, we would call them casual enthusiasts of horoscopes astrology. I want to read the column, tell me not about necessarily the future of the world, right? Like empires of old, but tell me about myself, right? Make the universe about me. And astrology, therefore, becomes a sort of psychological tool, a diagnostic. It's less about the future. It's more about understanding the hidden depths of one's own personality. But this was not always the case. Like every serious scientific endeavor in the modern day, this concept was intertwined inextricably with the concept of astronomy. So astrology is to astronomy the way alchemy is to chemistry.
That's exactly right, Ben. I was thinking the same thing. There was a time where those worlds were inextricably linked, and there was magic within science, right? They were kind of like cross pursuits.
It is almost belief intertwined with the scientific,
method or just drive, curiosity.
Yeah.
The how is science, the why is spirituality.
Exactly.
That's how I like to put it.
Yeah, you're applying belief to that stuff or meaning to the stuff that you're proving with the scientific method.
Yeah, and we know this is a super popular universal pursuit. If you ask the modern historical boffins, they're going to tell you that the belief in astrology, or I should say the practice of astrology, the big daddy ancestor of it begins back in Mesopotamia, and then it spreads to India. And then we have to also acknowledge that due to the length of time, the vast chasm of time we're interrogating here, it is almost certain that earlier civilizations and communities had their own systems of astrology, or something we would call astrology, and they are lost to history.
Well, it also just kind of makes a lot of sense from an early humanity perspective, where it's like this thing that you can see in the sky would be in some way linked to your god and the activities of your god. And it's kind of not a very far leap to make.
Especially when you see in an agrarian community real world results, right? The passage of time.
It makes me think of the Dogon tribe and the Sirius B knowledge that they had that was, recorded way before at least Western society believes they should have been able to do that, right?
Yeah, wonderful reference there, Matt. We also have we've explored that in some previous episodes, and I think a few videos. Didn't we do a video on this one?
I believe so.
We're so old. We're not as old as the stars, but we're getting there. We also know that there was this strange circuitous route that ancient astrological beliefs took before they arrived at your local "what should I do today as a Pisces" kind of columns. They started in what we call modern astrology, kind of begins in Greek civilization during the Hellenistic period. And then it goes to Islamic culture. And we owe a lot to Islamic culture as modern civilization. It's part of the Greek tradition. And only then does it return to Europe, because Europe had, something called the Dark Ages, and Arabic knowledge bases came back in. Right.
I recently had a really quick, sadly brief visit to the Museum of Islamic Culture in Doha, and there's a whole section devoted to technology around astrology and astronomy. And again, at the time, they were pretty inextricably linked, but things like astrolabes that were used to sort of track the movement and trajectory of different stars. But wrapped up in all of that was still very much kind of a divine way of looking at it.
Yes. Through the gods, we arrive at knowledge. What else would separate the human animal from the rest of the animals? So, across the ancient world, people are looking at stars, one of the only constants in existence, in that these motions of the heavens, as people didn't think the earth was moving. They thought the heavens were moving. And so the passage of the heavens to them, assuming that they were in a stationary location, was reproducible, predictable, and had real world consequence. And at the entire time this is happening across all civilizations, no exception, people are imposing their own concepts and meaning upon these stars. And these interpretations are often related, like everybody clocked the North Star doesn't really move relative to your location, so it's good for navigation. But in other ways, these systems often disagreed. A lot of people, even now, who are casual consumers of the Western zodiac, think there are 12 signs. Spoilers, there used to be 13. So this is still very much a fluid interpretive system. Is that fair to say? Like, I don't want to throw cold water on anything.
I think so.
Oh, no. Listen to Neil deGrasse Tyson's thoughts on astrology.
He's the cold water guy. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he'll hit
Fire
you with the
hose,
facts.
yeah.
The facts about that, like the math of it is all wrong, and
Yes.
if you look at it hard enough, you'll see the major flaws in like the underlying stuff.
Right.
I saw a video the other day on Instagram of somebody. It showed the Earth spinning, right, and then as it's orbiting around the sun, and then the sun moving through space, basically, because the sun is traveling extremely fast through space as we go around it. And then it was showing the galaxy, our galaxy moving as we are moving with it. And the comment on the video was like, you're telling me the same stars have been up there the whole time over thousands of years as we're traveling through the universe this fast and we're moving this fast and the stars always look the same? The pushback against that you have to realize is that it's all about scale, distance and scale.
Right. Macro and micro.
Yeah.
Well, it takes us like, an unimaginable amount of time to perceive changes that happened long, long, long ago, right? Because of the inherent lag of it all, right? For the signals, the light to move through space, we're seeing something from where we stand that happened a long, long, long time ago.
Yes, absolutely. But it's also just the distance between our viewpoint and where that light is coming from, right?
Yes.
So even though we are traveling that fast through the galaxy, riding our star, basically, the perspective doesn't change that much in proportion because of how dang far away it is. But it's just one of those things that I would need a science teacher to sit down and like really explain it to me fully to grasp it, right? But it's just weird that a video like that could be made, and there are probably a lot of people who watch that and go, "Oh man, those stars are bullshit. Those aren't real. That's the firmament."
Yes, the quintessence. Sure. That's a great reference too, and we understand like what you're saying, Matt. Or what Neil deGrasse Tyson and other learned sources in the modern day are pointing out. If you look at the math, there are serious quantitative problems with the axioms upon which most astrological belief systems hinge. That's very diplomatically put. Again, we are not going to denigrate someone's personal beliefs, right? It's kind of what works for you to a certain threshold. We also need to know everybody was discovering this. Western astrology reached its own conclusions, yet Mesoamerican civilizations, Near East civilizations, the East Asian theater, all of these ancient communities had their own astrological systems, which are still being practiced today. In astrology now, if you are looking to explore or encounter it, you're going to find countless guides, groups, apps, forums, publications dedicated to general astrology or specific astrology. And as you have doubtlessly experienced in your own life, fellow conspiracy realist, astrology can be kind of you mentioned Spencer's earlier, it can be kind of a hot topic for the dating scene. Cue the sound clip, OMG, you guys, that's so Leo for you to say that.
Thank you. So with some validity, we could assume that astrology today no longer holds that same, divine guidance that it offered to past civilizations.
However, we're about to see this assumption could not be further from the truth.
Cue the ad break.
Here's where it gets crazy. All right, we talked about it. Most mass market horoscope publications these days are pretty positive, right? You're not going to open your local paper, or for a lot of us in the crowd tonight, you're not going to pull up your general news app and then see something that says, Sagittarius, stay indoors, don't go outside, beware of Honda Odysseys, and don't trust men in blue hats or something like that.
Yeah, you don't know. They're going to be something vague and generally feel-goody, or in some way vaguely actionable, or, give you something to look out for that is going to turn your luck around, things like that.
And this makes sense operationally. These are outlets that want you to return in the future. And also, I would posit they don't want to be held liable for dangerous or illegal actions a reader might take after they encounter a horoscope.
Yeah, to that point, but I kind of walk back even what I said. They're not actionable exactly at all. They're just sort of like giving you some signs to maybe look out for, or just in general, giving you a positive affirmation that things are looking up for you, Virgo, right? But they're not saying go do the thing, because that's a really good point, Ben. They don't want to be responsible for anybody misinterpreting that, and maybe because they are so vague, doing something horrible because they think that it's telling them to.
Aquarius. Sometimes you want to do things and you do them. Sometimes you want to do things and you don't.
Listen to the voices, Aquarius.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to take accountability for your actions. It was the stars. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm calling out of work because Mercury's rising.
Or in retrograde. Is that the same thing? What's the difference?
Retrograde. Sorry, that's a better
There
way.
you go.
That's a better way. And also, it sounds like we're obviously not dismissing this. We consider it a personal belief system.
Absolutely.
In the West, for practitioners of Western astrology, the first thing you have to point out is that when we're reading those casual horoscopes, we are reading 12 light paragraphs based upon what are called sun signs. Sun signs are just the tip of the astrological iceberg for a reading.
But the in-depth astrological readings that many true enthusiasts of this stuff look to pull in so many more details and factors than the kind of generally vague feel-goodery of newspaper horoscopes. Things like the location of each planet, longitude, latitude, position of the stars relative to other stars, etc. There's so many more variables that are included and pulling from a much larger data set. So, because of that, you are going to see more specificity in these conclusions.
For better or for worse, more data to draw from equals more in-depth conclusions. And there are tons and tons and tons of deep read services out there. And we want to be very honest. Please listen closely. The vast majority of people and institutions, people especially offering deep read services, are not trying to grift you. They believe in this. They are applying their acumen and their expertise and familiarity to their clients. So they're not trying to, steal all your money. They are trying to help you. They honestly believe in what they're doing. And most often, individuals looking for the deeper read of their astrological position, they will go to another person or a service. And that's where you see modern astrology getting much closer, cleaving much closer to the practices of ancient times, specific conclusions, specific advice, and specific warnings.
And this is probably outside the scope of this episode, but if I'm not mistaken, we've got one coming up on this very topic on Ridiculous History. A lot of those 900 number, pay by the minute astrological reading services that were much more popular in the late 90s and maybe early 2000s. Many of those have been proven to be less of deep reads than they are deep grifts.
Shout out to the rude dudes on Ridiculous Crime and their Miss Cleo episode, by the way.
Nice. I haven't heard that. I need to listen to that one for sure. And when we say modern times, by the way, we're talking 1800s on, where there are specific people that are, giving that kind of granular advice based on the knowledge they pull from the stars.
And you might not read about it in the news too often because a lot of people in an increasingly secular world, they kind of want to play it to the side and kind of want it, not to be the headline. And that cannot be further from the truth. Right now, as we record, various powerful people and institutions are still consulting astrologers, and it is further not uncommon for these wisdom seekers to modify their real-world on-earth actions to comply with, to follow in accordance with the recommendations of their astrologers. Entire countries have indeed modified their actions based on what they perceive to be what I think we could call a conspiracy of constellations. One of the best examples, let's do two examples if we have time. One of the best examples is Myanmar, which we talked about recently in depth.
Yeah, so why don't we start there? Formerly known as Burma, Myanmar is a Southeast Asian country that is situated between India, China, and Thailand, and also shares some smaller borders with Bangladesh and Laos.
Yeah, we talked about it very recently with the large facilities that are being built in this country, right across the border from some of those bordering countries, where there's a bit of a air of lawlessness because of the deep political issues in Myanmar right now, basically civil war. And when we talked about that, I don't know, it's weird to me because when we're talking about Myanmar in relation to this specifically, are we talking about like the ruling folks from the government that were kind of overthrown that still say they're in power? Or are we talking about the folks who are coming in to seize power?
Excellent question. We're talking about everyone. To steal the meme from Gary Oldman. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Matt. There's human trafficking, an ongoing civil war, online scam slavery is what we focused on in one episode. Every kind of oppression you could imagine, including espionage ops by foreign governments and private corporations. Myanmar has all of that and more. Currently, as you pointed out, there are two groups that testify they rule the land, long-standing, somewhat mercurial military junta, and then a loose coalition of forces purporting to push democracy. Look into their funding is all we're going to say there. It struggles with chaos, moves toward democracy that have occurred in the lifetimes of most of our listeners. They seem to make headway, like Aung San Suu Kyi, and then abruptly they're shut down a moment later. Myanmar, to your question there, Matt, has always had a deep regard and respect for divination, astrology, fortune telling, and in particular, numerology, largely based on Buddhist Hindu thought from civilizations past. And we might casually in the West read our sun signs in the local paper. You might be, swiping to and fro on a dating app and saying, yeah, classic. I feel like we're trying to use all the zodiac signs. What have we said? Pisces, Cancer, Virgo, Leo, Aquarius. What's another one?
Sagittarius.
Sagittarius. You might be like, oh, Sagittarius. Awesome. This is an entry point into our conversation. But overwhelmingly in this part of the world, people will consult for what you would consider very serious decisions with long-standing consequences, not just the public, but also the people in power, like the generals and the dictators. Numerous examples of this, like the independence of Burma is probably the moment it became officially independent is almost certainly based on advice from fortune tellers and numerologists.
Really? Well, the date is January 4th, 1948. At 4:20 a.m. We understand.
Yeah,
we get it.
Tight. I knew you guys were cool.
This was almost certainly a decision that was made by some very high-level advisors practicing astrology based on interpretations of that type of numerology you were talking about, Ben. Former dictator General Ne Win was obsessed with numerology.
Oh, yeah. This is where astrology touches the money. Oh, this is so nuts. Okay, so if you are increasingly, like us, paranoid and carrying a lot of cash, do us a favor and pull out your currency of choice, look at it, and imagine, like, if you have a $20 bill and a $5 bill and some ones or whatever, imagine that all the $5 bills you have were pulled from currency. Now they're just pieces of paper. Always a danger with fiat currency philosophy, but that's what, like you were mentioning, Noel, that's what Ne Win did in 1987 on the advice of his astrologer. He went to the nation of Burma and said the denominations of 45 and 90 kyats, Kyats, don't count anymore. They're not legal tender, and he probably did it. We're 90% certain he made this call because his astrologer told him that his lucky number was 9, and 45 and 90 are divisible by 9. The sum of 4 plus 5 is 9, and so on and so on. The rabbit hole goes deep. So he made this decision affecting currency for millions of people because his astrologer was talking to him about numerology. To be fair, he did live to 92.
Not bad.
Not bad at all, right? So maybe. Hopefully we get to 92, but then we're saying this to set up another example of astrology and government in Myanmar. In 2002, the military junta hit the local population and later the rest of the world with one hell of a Shyamalan plot twist.
Mm-hmm. Can I just say, if you're looking to find an entry point into the jam band Fish, they have an album called Junta that's pretty great, actually. So just putting that out there. I'm a fan of the Fish album Junta, unrelated.
Isn't there another band with Burma in their name?
Mission of Burma.
Okay.
Kind of a post-punk, kind of post-hardcore maybe bands, but they're cool.
So what happens in 2002?
Well, a lot happens in 2002. That was
really?
a big
I thought
year.
It was only 3 things.
I thought it was just the one thing. Tell us, Matt. Lead us on this journey.
Yes.
Well, my friends and I, we all graduated from high school. Oh,
that's true.
The days.
You guys did.
Yeah.
It is weird to think about that. This happened just in our lifetime. This kind of thinking, all this stuff. It just how modern that really is.
Wait, so you were a junior during 9/11?
I was
as well. I remember seeing the planes hit in real time during computer class. We had a computer, like a tech class. It was sort of the class where everyone just kind of got to, do whatever.
So it comes to pass. It's 2002. A lot of things are happening, right? As you said, Matt, over in Myanmar, the rulers of the country, until they themselves, fall afoul of coups and so on, they say, they hatch a conspiracy and they say, all right, our capital city has been Rangoon, or called Yangon, for a long time. Here's what's going to happen. You got 2 months, everybody. You're going to move to our new capital about 300 clicks north. You're going to call it Naipita or Napita, pardon our pronunciations here, and you're going to do it right now. And for outsiders and the local population, this made 0 sense, primarily because this new capital that they all had to move to, Toot Sweet, it did not exist. There was a small town. There was no capital. It was all jungle.
Oh, it was like Olympics rules where you just build a whole new place.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Get in there way before it's ready.
Yep.
Yeah. And there was, secondly, another thing. So, okay, we'll build the plane while we're flying it, right? We'll build the boat while we're on the ocean. Very dangerous, very terrible for the people who are affected by this decision. Their second problem is, and this is something that China and our guys were looking at, there's no strategic advantage to moving this capital. Nothing that you could see operationally. There's no improvement in infrastructure because it doesn't exist. No improvement in security nor borders. Doesn't affect trade routes. There's no resource extraction perk, right? Myanmar is famous for emeralds, for instance. It's not right next to an awesome emerald mine. None of that. It is exactly as if someone in the White House in the U.S. woke up one day and said, you guys, I got a weird vibe. We're moving D.C. to Edison, New Jersey. If Edison, New Jersey did not already exist. That's about 180 so miles north of D.C.
Good thing all those marble buildings were, built on wheels with the possibility to just truck them along the highway.
Just like disassembling your IKEA furniture, right? So also add to this, everybody has to move in 2 months. They also say it has to be a secret. So you can't tell anybody. Imagine you're a public servant in Yangon and you get you get your moving papers. You have to relocate immediately. You have to do it now, and you cannot take your family with you. Further, you can't tell them why you're going or where.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So are we saying somebody got some kind of bad reading and like just said something bad's going to happen here. We got to get out now. Don't tell anybody it's happening. We just can't be here.
Right. It's like that trope in so many Western action movies, right? The aliens are coming. Only a few people are allowed into the Ark, right? So the news did get public, and foreign embassies, embarrassingly enough, our friends in China, they were left out to dry. Well, I'm sure they knew a little bit. They had to see something in the wind, but the message they got from Myanmar was essentially, you guys don't have to move up with us, but if you want to keep hanging out, well, we're not going to come all the way down to you, so make your choice.
So basically, there wasn't a choice. Everyone had to move. And as you can imagine, there was an absolute melee of hectic conversations. Wasn't the best day to be in the State Department, Ben, as you point out astutely in this outline.
Yeah.
Oh, guys, the stars are telling me it's time for an ad break. We'll be right back.
And we've returned. Let's get back into our conversation about astrology and governments.
All right. Why did they do it? Why did they want to keep it secret? We kid thee not. The military did this based on advice from an astrologer, and you can see it based on the very specific timing of these decisions. Like the inauguration of the city itself occurs at, again, just like independence, it occurs at a very odd time, like oddly specific.
November 6th, 2005 at 6:37 a.m. local time. Why is that specific? Like why? Like what is the significance? I mean,
why do we have to wait 7 minutes? Why can't we just go at 6:30?
But was it purposeful?
Yes, dude. It was like, this is the time that the thousands of trucks begin, moving, as you said, all the marble buildings on wheels.
I'd be interested if they write dates, year, month, day. So it would be 2005 1106 637. That's interesting.
Yeah. And then government workers, the guys we talked about who had to move in silence, right? They depart from the old capital to the new one on November 11th at 11 a.m. So 11/11/11, regardless of how you write the date.
Even I know that number is significant.
Make a wish, right? Says every toxic relationship you've ever had.
Oh, mine was check the doors, make sure they're locked.
Okay.
Oh, really?
No.
So our buddy, returning guest, General Tan Shui, currently alive, retired as we record. He's the guy who made the call, and the story is his personal astrologer told him he had to do this at these specific times, not just for himself, but because doing so, moving the capital, would save the nation of Myanmar from a looming disaster.
It's not to be confused with General Feng Shui, who had a very similar attitude.
No, nor General So over in China,
Also true.
who people were like, General, we've got a lot of problems. And he said, hold on, taste this real quick.
It's delicious.
Yeah. It's a little known fact that the astrologer of the general there owned a lot of property where the new capital. No, I'm just joking. That's not true, but you could imagine.
They probably got a sweetheart deal. There's this deep, what we're saying is there's a deep abiding relationship between Myanmar's government policy and numerology. And there are so many more examples of this, including how one day, true story, the general's astrologer staff told him that a woman will one day lead the country. And as a result, we've linked a picture here in our notes. The general and his entourage donned traditional women's clothing for a photo op.
Okay.
Yeah, try to loophole it a little bit. Yeah, and I know. I'm watching you guys look at the picture. It doesn't look bad.
No, it just looks fetching. Yeah, it looks like a skirt of some sort.
But just like, I think it's called a longue. But just like the guy who changed the currency to extend his lifespan and then later lived to 92, true believers in astrological systems here will argue that the predictions of the heavens came to pass, because in 2008, Myanmar experienced the worst natural disaster in all of its recorded history, and it hit Yangon.
So on May 2nd, 2008, the tropical cyclone Nargis made landfall, passing by the old capital, and caused at least $15.3 billion worth of damage. It killed hundreds of thousands of people. It was an absolute tragedy and humanitarian crisis. So many, in fact, that we still aren't quite sure what the death toll actually was.
Wow, and it bypassed the new capital, or it didn't touch the new capital?
Didn't touch it. And also it was kind of a close, it was a close scrape with the old capital. So there was tremendous damage, as you were saying, Noel, to the infrastructure. Hundreds of thousands of people did die. But for a lot of people observing this who survived, this proved that the astrologer had effective powers to foretell the future, to say the sooth.
Yeah, at least, for them, because it's personal experience that close. And you can see how that would reinforce the belief for sure.
And then we can also see how the more skeptical in the audience would say, look at the geography, look at the climate, something like this was statistically inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a rough one. I mean, it also, were the astrologers correct? Does this depend on your individual perspective? Are we as Westerners othering, as we mentioned earlier? And hey there, hi there, hello there, folks. Brief pause. We went offline and consulted our own star chart, aka our publishing buffer and our schedules.
It becomes an Excel spreadsheet form.
Yes. A very mystical Excel spreadsheet. Mm-hmm. And we are going to make this a series. We've given a brief exploration of the history of astrology, right? The world entire. We've looked at specific instances in the nation of Myanmar, Burma. And when we return in chapter 2, we're taking this closer to home, all the way to the White House.
Yeah, we're going stateside. We're going to talk a little bit about Reagan.
Oh, yeah.
And Reagan. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. And older presidents that you don't remember, like Franklin Pierce.
I remember him. I wasn't impressed, but I remember him.
I don't.
He was a snappy dresser.
We're going to show you that this practice that we're talking about doesn't just exist in lands some may consider far-flung. Now, again, we have always endeavored to be I was going to say acknowledgeful, respectful of, and acknowledging of people's personal beliefs and practices. And we know this may be a divisive topic. A lot of us in the crowd tonight are hardcore skeptics. A lot of us are very much true believers. And we want to hear from all of you. This show does not exist without you. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks always to our long-suffering producers, Triforce and the Tennessee Pal. Let us know your thoughts and join us for Chapter 2 of the exploration on astrology and government. Hey guys, how do I get in touch with you? We've got good news. You can find us online. You can send us an email. You can even tappity-tap us on a telephonic device.
It's true. If you want to find us on the internet, on your social media platform of choice, you can find us at the handle Conspiracy Stuff, where we exist on Facebook with our Facebook group, Here's Where It Gets Crazy, on YouTube, where we have video content galore for your enjoyment, and on X, nay, FKA, Twitter. On Instagram and TikTok, however, we are Conspiracy Stuff Show.
Please don't tap our direct phones. There are plenty of people doing that already. Hi, jokety jokes. Our number is 1-833-STDWYTK. When you call in, give yourself a cool nickname and let us know whether or not we can use your name and message on the air. Again, it's a 3-minute voicemail. That's what it is, and use it if you wish. If you wish to instead send us links, longer thoughts, maybe even, I don't know, a picture of a kitty cat or a doggy doo or another animal in your life. We love those. Why not send us an email? We are
the entities that read every piece of correspondence we receive. We've actually returned from abroad and are catching up with you, Void-wise, as we return. Be well aware, yet unafraid, sometimes the Void writes back, hey, is that true? How can I learn for certain? Well, there's one way. Step a little further from the light. Join us here in the dark. Conspiracy at iHeartRadio.com.
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.